Hello, friends and scaly ones. Welcome to Scarlet Citadel Wednesdays with Kobold Press. This is the show that we use to talk about the Scarlet Citadel Kickstarter project from Kobold Press that is live now, about a fantastic mega dungeon that we are very excited about. I have a very special guest with me here today, but first I will introduce myself. I am Amanda Hammond. I am the editorial director over at Kobold Press. We are also joined today behind the scenes with Victoria Rogers, who is our social media kobold, and I will let the gentleman with me introduce himself.
Oh boy, I'm Marc Radle. I'm the art director for Kobold Press, and I guess you'd say the lead graphic designer. I make everything look pretty.
Marc is the artistic genius behind those beautiful hardcover books that you've all been receiving for all of our Kickstarter projects. So today we have lots of fun stuff to talk about. We have a number of art pieces that we are showing, some of them live and for the first time on the internet. So it is the world debut of some of these art pieces. They are all pulled directly from the Scarlet Citadel hardcover, so they will be gracing the chapter openers of this exciting project for us. We also, at the end of our show, or toward the end of the show, will be showing you an exclusive preview sneak peek of one of the maps of this dungeon. We all know that maps are very important to tabletop role-playing and dungeons in particular, and Marc has a really cool map picked out, and he's going to show us exactly what's on there and how that came about and what you can expect in that level of the dungeon. But first of all, Victoria, could you please show us our first spoiler image? All right, so all of these images today are going to be by artist Thompson, who is one of our regulars over at Kobold. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the cover. I completely jumped ahead. This is the cover by David Auden Nash. Marc, can you tell us a little bit about this piece?
Yeah, it's a really cool piece. As you can see, it's very horizontal. What we're doing for Scarlet Citadel, this is what we call a cover wrap, which means the right side is the front cover, and then it wraps around, and then the left side is the back cover. It's just kind of depicting a nice climactic battle somewhere in the dungeon. It was really cool working with David on that. We sort of talked it out, and I gave him just sort of some basic ideas. Here's kind of what we want to do, and we really want that red scarlet color to really ring true. And I think he took it. He really ran with it. I think it's a beautiful piece. I'd love to have it hanging on my wall.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool, ruminations about this piece and how it came together that David wrote up and sent to us, and we posted on our Kickstarter
Yeah,
as an update early
yeah.
on in the first week. And it was really interesting to me to read through that and edit through that and just see how he talked about the brief being that there should be an epic scale battle, that it should look like these adventurers are, just in dire straits, almost at death's door, that sense of drama should really come out of that cover. Is that something that's typically important to you, Marc, throughout these type of scenes?
Absolutely. Action, sense of movement, of scale, of adventure is very important. I mean, you can have a beautiful piece, but if it's just sort of a static, image, it doesn't convey as much. Uh, and in this piece, absolutely. I mean, it looks like they are just about to get overwhelmed. In fact, that was something David and I kind of talked about. Really wanted to give that sense that they may get out of that, but there's also a real good chance that they're not getting out of it. So which I really love, and I really like too that we sort of were able to get a lot of very Kobold Press creatures in there. I've seen a lot of people call them goblins, the ones that are kind of coming up from the bottom, but they're actually, I think they're from one of our monster books. They're either bloody skeletons, bloody zombies, something like that. But they're not goblins. And then I think like the ogre that's kind of up there leading is I think I'm blanking out a tusked ogre or something like that. So a lot of those creatures are actually from our various monster books, the Tome of Beasts, Creature Codex, etc., which was kind of fun.
Yeah, that is super fun. And I know, folks seem to like and enjoy the fact that we are known for lots of very unique monsters, that we've got, three big best series all full of unique monsters. And I really like the focus on undead creatures in this. And I really like that, if you look at the way those adventurers are backed up against that wall, it really looks like you're right there with them and you can smell that horrible stank that's coming off the undead. And you can just hear the gurgling and the gargling and the growling. And so I just think that David did such a fantastic job for this piece.
He really did. This was our first cover with David. He's done a number of pieces. Uh, Tome of, or I'm sorry, Deep Magic. He did a lot of single figure interior illustrations. But this is his first cover with us, and I think he knocked it out of the park. I definitely want to be working with him again on a cover.
Yeah, there you go, folks in chat. A beautiful piece of trivia there is that this is David Auden-Nash's graduation to cover art for Kobold Press, and he has done a fantastic job
Absolutely.
for us. So yeah, Victoria, show us our next piece of art. So this, like the rest of the other pieces that we'll be seeing today, this is a piece by Thompson. It is called Bat Caverns. Mark, do you want to talk to us a little bit about what this is showing? Because that is a massive bat.
It is a massive bat. Obviously, these are the next couple pieces we're going to see are the chapter openers for the different chapters. So we're going to be a little careful what we say because what it's depicting is actually something from that chapter being that level. But that bat, oh, that's also a creature from one of our books, and I forget what it is off the top of my head. I don't know if you remember. I'm blanking out, but it's definitely a giant bat that we feature in one of our monster books. That the
We have a lot of creatures that are just like, not just, but they are big versions of creatures that you might normally recognize, like our Swobold, for example, medium size kobold.
yes, if you like a T-shirt of Snowballs, you can go get one from us.
That's very true. That's a good transition to mention the fact that we have got two brand new Scarlet Citadel t-shirt designs.
Yes.
If you love that cover art that we just showed on stream there, that can be found on a t-shirt. And there's also another piece of art. Is that correct?
Yes, it's an owlbear, an awesome owlbear by William O'Brien, another one of our artists who's done a lot of pieces for the book, interior pieces. He's done a lot of work for us. He does great stuff. And in fact, we debuted that owlbear art in a recent update. It's the owlbear that has some armor, and it's a cool piece. So that's the other T-shirt, and you can get one or both because everything's on sale right now on our T-shirt and merchandise store. So
that's right, 30%
get them for
off.
cheap. 35% off.
35% off. Oh,
That's right. We give our fans whatever.
We understand that the weather is getting colder and our scaliest friends are going to want to cover their scales as it's getting colder. So we have plenty of t-shirts to keep you covered.
Sweatshirts, all kinds of stuff. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So another thing about this piece that, I think holds true throughout a lot of pieces is that we have got specific adventurers, right, that we're showing.
Yeah, we can almost call them the iconics. We sort of picked out 3 adventurers, and you'll see them throughout each of the chapter openers in various states of winning or not winning. It's I believe it's a dragonkin sorcerer. We have a human paladin and a gnome cleric, which I love. He's my favorite. He's just a cool little guy.
And like we love to say in the industry, we have tons and tons of fun putting our iconic heroes in horrible, horrible situations and seeing what happens in the art that results.
Yes. And I saw some on some of the comments on the Kickstarter, some people were asking about pre-gens and, stat it up and things like that. And I know there was some talk about, well, maybe we'll stat up those 3 and maybe people can actually play them if they want.
Oh, yeah. I see a great suggestion in chat. That bats fly through the power of jazz hands from Alexander, our director of operations. Jazz hands could be an ability on those pre-gens if you guys really, really, really wanted to argue for it hard enough. I'm just ridiculous enough to listen. Oh, yeah. So let me just take this opportunity to welcome everybody in chat. Just say hello. If you have a question for us, please throw that into the chat. If you wouldn't mind typing all caps question, that will help me be able to see it because sometimes I can't read. So if you have anything that you want to know about these pieces of art, any questions for Mark, any questions for me, we'll be happy to answer that throughout the course of the stream. Because we have still got a lot more to show you guys, including this next piece. Victoria, if you wouldn't mind. We've got is this the Black River? This is the Black River. Okay, again, another piece by Egil Thompson, which is our tentacliest, cuddliest piece of art in this book. Mark, we want to tell us about this?
Yes, I like that piece a lot. That's the Gargoyle. Yeah, I never can pronounce it right.
Gargoctopus.
Gargoctopus.
You gotta say in the back of your throat, Gargoctopus.
Yeah. Little Klingon.
That's my Klingon, everyone. It's really bad, isn't it?
Oh, Kapla. There's some Klingon.
Oh my gosh! Wow,
that's my Star Trek coming through. That's a great piece. The Gargoctopus is very cool. Eagle did a great job realizing it. And if I remember correctly, two of our heroes are in the boat, and our sorcerer is not so lucky. He got knocked out, and I think he's desperately trying to get back in. And and that level, as again, that's a chapter opener. That level really focuses on the Black River, which is a large underground river that goes through that level. So that's fun.
Yeah, that is a really fun point to be making, Mark, is that this is not necessarily just a building that goes underground. This is indeed a dungeon, but it's thousands of years old at least. It's got all of these different features in it. And, there are things like rivers that are running through certain levels. There are caves. It's not all constructed. That must have been an interesting thing to illustrate.
Yeah, there are ancient dwarf barracks. There are Wolfgang. Scarlet Citadel comes from Wolfgang's own campaign, and it has tons of lore. It's one of those things where, one group of people or civilization or whatever had it, and then another one took it, and then another one, and another one. So one level is dwarves, ancient dwarf barracks. Others are crypts. Others have old alchemists. And in fact, for folks that have the Warlock issue 20, it's a big double issue that focuses on Red Tower, which is the village near Scarlet Citadel, and then it also has a lot of lore about Scarlet Citadel, how it came to be. There's a ton of lore tied into this. It's not just here's a dungeon, go plunder a bunch of junk and kill stuff and take their stuff. There's that, but then there's a lot more to it. There's a lot of lore and plots and subplots, and there's a lot going on.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. We were talking with Wolfgang earlier about how, like you just said, the Citadel had been owned and taken over by many different factions over the years, and that there are all of these remnants of all of these different cultural influences and all of these different usurpers of the dungeon, and that there is artifacts and magic items kind of spread out through everywhere. And so, if you're looking for a unique souvenir, you might find a severed octopus tentacle, or you might find like an old dwarven artifact, or you might find, something from one of the human factions that has shown up. Did you give it any thought as you were putting together these art pieces to telling that story visually and like showing some of that stuff and giving hints as to what might be found there?
We did. I worked a lot with Wolfgang and with Steve Winter on the briefs to make sure they really, really reflected and had a lot of cool details, and then worked with Eagle to really realize that. In fact, the next piece, I believe, really kind of shows that, because you can tell that, whereas this piece, they're in, full-on underground cavern, with rivers and all that good stuff. The next one is very, very different, and maybe that's a good segue. Because it really shows that, okay, now in the next piece, you're in an old crypt. I mean, it's it's creepy. It's it screams undead.
Which of them have undead? Spoilers, all of them have undead, right, Mark?
I have no idea.
That's right. We don't know. We won't tell you.
Yes.
However, we've got Jabberlocky who is in chat and wants to know, what is the biggest secret in the Dungeon of Secrets? You know what, Jabberlocky? I know that you are trying to be cheeky. I know you're trying to get us to tell you things that we're not going to, but you know what? I'm going to call your bluff and I'm going to tell you what the biggest secret in the Dungeon of Secrets is. And it's that the BBEG is 3 kobolds in a trench coat. Boom, next question.
And a swobold.
And a swobold. Oh, 3 swobolds in a trench coat. That's a huge trench coat.
That's
Is it literally a huge trench coat with a capital H? Huge size trench coat?
There you go. There you go.
What happens when you stack 3 medium creatures on top of each other?
There you go.
You get the BBEG of Scarlet Citadel, everyone. You heard it here first.
So that's where all this is going to go. Okay, I got it.
That's right. Ooh, question. Other than undead and kobolds from Jabberlocky, what kinds of Midgard monsters can we anticipate? Any other teases? Well, that is a great question. Let's see. I know that we've got that special owlbear, which is of course not a Midgard monster. There's a swarm of ogre peas. Alexander, you're stealing my thunder.
That's a good, that was a fun piece to get illustrated.
The ogre pea? Oh, and the fact that
that illustration.
That specific illustration.
Yeah.
We've got lots of monsters that are in Scarlet Citadel, but we've got a lot of classic dungeon threats as well.
Yeah, I think when Steve is on, I think he'll be able to wax poetic about all the cool Midgard specific monsters, and I'm sure there'll be some new ones on there.
And
I'm excited about to get illustrated.
Yeah. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, there are some unique monsters that he's written for this dungeon, which of course will be not only Midgard monsters, but they will be Scarlet Citadel monsters. So that's very exciting, but I don't think we quite want to spoil that yet.
I'm excited about that though, because that's one of my favorite things as art director. Whenever you get to get a new creature illustrated, I love working with the artist, working back and forth, seeing those sketches come in, that final piece. So yeah, anytime I know there's going to be new creatures that I get to get illustrated, I get excited. Yeah,
that's a great segue into our next question from Slight Addict, who wants to know, what art piece have you not done yet that you're really looking forward to?
Specifically for this?
I guess. They can't specify, so answer it as you please, sir.
Ooh, boy, that's a good question. The interesting thing there, as I said, is I don't know because I haven't seen what the new pieces are yet. Meaning the new monsters, but those are definitely what I get excited about, because Steve Winter is a veteran, so when he designs a monster or a creature, it's going to be cool. Which then I take as a challenge, because the cooler that creature is, the cooler I want that art, and the harder I work, with the artist to make sure that art is awesome. So I guess my answer is I don't know, other than whatever Steve throws at me is what I'm excited to get illustrated.
Because Steve has really thrown out a lot of just very exciting, I don't want to say off the wall, but very unexpected, unanticipated ideas for this adventure. What I've seen coming out of him has been like, wow, I never would have expected a giant river running through the middle of the dungeon, for example. Yeah. And as Chris Lockey, who has identified himself, so I will do it on stream, says Steve Winter rules. He does rule.
Steve Winter is very cool.
He is, and we are going to have him on stream next week. So if you're really interested in hearing what he has to say and asking some of those very specific questions about what's in the dungeon, feel free to show up this time next week and pepper him with all of your questions, and we'll force him to answer it on air.
Yeah, I can say, and I won't say what they are, but in the lower dungeons, there's some really cool stuff.
Oh yeah, the lower that you get, I feel like the more the gloves come off. The lower you get in the dungeon, the more weird stuff pops up, like everything's in a cave. There's not non-spoilery answer. There's like fields of things that do things, and maybe there are anti-things that show up, and it's just really exciting.
Maybe things having to do with the void. I mean, who knows?
Maybe things that have to do with the void, which is a very fun thing, specifically in Midgard, right?
Yeah. When we worked on the maps, maybe we're jumping ahead too much. But the way we worked on the maps were very organic, and some of the ideas that were coming out are, hey, we need to have this. There were many times where I just was like, wow, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, for sure. So we had a couple people talking about map overlays. We're going to get to that after our final art spoiler here. Then we're going to talk all about maps, and we're going to talk about specifically a one sample map that we're showing you today. So Victoria, if you don't mind putting up that last piece of art on the screen there, we will tell you all about dun 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 Family Crypt. This is another piece by Egil Thompson. Mark, you want to tell us a bit about this one as well?
Yeah, that's my favorite gnome cleric. Going up against, I guess, we'll say wraiths. There's a little more to it, but we won't say. But I love the crypt. I love, as I said, this is, a very, very different piece and different feel than just, the underground crypt with the river. This is definitely probably at one time was a very nice, you know, sanctified, lovely crypt, and it's not so much now.
It's not quite so precious and untouched anymore because it's crawling with raids or shadows
Right.
or whatever those things are.
Right. Dementors.
Dementors. Oh Lord, what a monster. Is
They're not
that your
Dementors.
favorite gnome buddy? Is that your gnome BFF?
Yeah,
Mark?
I don't know why. I've never been a fan of gnomes. I've never played a gnome in my life, but I love that. Yeah, that character. I think if I ever get the chance to play in this and we do stat them up, I'm playing him.
We don't tend to name our iconics, do we, in our adventures?
Yeah, well, maybe we do. If we do, I'm claiming it. I'm naming him. I already have his name in my head.
Yeah. Oh, tell us. Tell us exclusively on stream.
I don't know why I like the name Tegan Umberwood.
Tegan Umberwood. Oh, wonderful. Because I was going to come up with something ridiculous.
Like Steve Squishy Pants.
Like, Elipstiltskin or something like that.
Wow. Wow. No, I've always loved that. I always loved a cool name, Tegan Umberwood for a gnome. So it's stuck in my head. So,
Umberwood,
so I
yeah.
think that's his name.
Is he a wizard? What exactly?
No,
What's
he's a
his
cleric.
Oh, he's a cleric.
He's a
Okay.
cleric. Yeah, I can't see the piece. I believe in this piece he's actually holding up a holy symbol.
He is
not?
holding his hand outwards, and it looks like maybe there's a holy symbol there.
Okay. Yeah, no, he's a cleric. He's trying to turn them.
He's trying to turn them. Well, that seems to be a good strategy before he becomes one of them himself.
Yes.
Chris has an alternate suggestion for you. Beardo fancy hands. I don't know. What do you feel about that?
We'll talk.
We'll talk. And by that we mean, excuse you, we're not calling you Beardo fancy hand.
It'll be the name when you play him.
Yeah, I'm still going with Elipstiltskin because screw you, Chris.
Wow.
Oh,
Now the gloves came off. Wow.
we love you, Chris. Thank you for hanging out with us. Okay, so we have, we got another 20 minutes to talk maps. Why don't we throw up that sample map that we are revealing for the very first time live and on the internet on Scarlet Citadel Wednesdays. Show us that map, please, Victoria. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so as I was saying before the show, I have never seen this map before. I have no idea what this map is showing. I barely know what level it is. So Mark, please help me not look so dumb.
Obviously, we can't talk too much. And I chose one that was from the upper levels because we don't want to reveal spoilers. But this is level 2. And what you can see there, what's kind of cool, basically each of our battle maps, which part of this Kickstarter, you can get the actual physical printed battle maps you lay down on your table with minis, and they're going to be amazing.
Like flip mats, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're big. Each of the maps is going to be 24 by 36, which is very big. The levels 2 through 5 are actually made up of 2 of those 24 by 36 maps. So what we're looking at here is the left side of the dungeon. There's still another map that size that goes to the right of it. So in theory, if you have a really big table, you can put them both down and just have a massive map. And levels 2 through 4 or 5 are all like that. So they're big. The left side here is called the Scriptorium. And I think that's all we probably should say, other than there's lots of good stuff. You can get a lot of ideas on what could possibly be going on in there.
Yeah, I mean, getting into the brain of the internet who loves to zoom in on things and scrutinize and look to see what's there. It looks like,
Zoom and enhance.
yes, enhance. It looks like there's some acid pools, maybe a gas, maybe a room with some gas in it. Lots
Mhm.
of hazards. There's a room that is that maybe like a campfire up there. Yeah.
Well, there could be some rooms that different creatures use as a little temporary camp barracks, and that, that might be what that is. Who knows?
That might be what that is. We're
Yeah,
not going to say one way or the other.
we don't.
So,
Um,
oh, I'm sorry. Please.
well, no, I was just going to say, and I can do it now. I wanted the way these maps came about was really interesting. It was very organic, and it was kind of the opposite of the way maps usually happen for adventures. Normally, what happens is a writer designs the adventure, they sketch out whatever, however many maps, just their rough sketch, and then that all comes to us, and then I would take those sketches, get them sent off to a cartographer, and they would realize it. Um,
Mm,
so the maps happen, after the adventure's been designed. In this case, because the maps are going to be so important and so central and so huge, what we did is we kind of went the other way. And I think probably Wolfgang, you guys talked about it a little bit last time. What we did was Wolfgang and Steve and I kind of talked about, and Steve gave general ideas, general things that were going to happen in each, that had to be incorporated into each map, each level. Like in this case, Scriptorium has to have vats of stuff, that's what we say. And things like that. And then once we kind of had a bullet point list, we worked with our photographer, John Pintar, and just kind of said, now here's the size of each map, design it, come up with a cool layout for the map. It just has to have this, this, and this, and this. And then it was kind of cool because we went back and forth. We got the first sketch, and then we sort of talked about it. Well, but for instance, the ancient dwarf barracks, they really probably should want to be closer to where the dwarven temple was. Right now we have a little too far. Let's move that. So the maps have a very, again, organic but real sense to them. And John is Pintar, our photographer, is also really good at that because he has I believe, an architectural background. So he really approaches that, so everything is realistic. I mean, it all makes sense. And hey, well, these steps really shouldn't be here because, sewage wouldn't put that. There's a lot that went into it. Um, and then once the maps were finalized and locked in, only then did Steve start actually writing the adventure, to the maps as opposed to.
yeah.
So it was a really cool way to work. It's definitely not the way you normally work, but it was a fantastic way to work. And then when you finally see those maps, I mean, I'm thrilled. They're going to be awesome. They're going to be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I am so glad that you mentioned John Pintar, who's our master cartographer for this project. And if you go onto the Kickstarter page, he is listed under the creative team, and you can read about his background there. But John is a very avid gamer, from what I understand, and has a long background in playing dungeon crawls and mega dungeon adventures himself. And so, in some ways, he's kind of the architect of his own demise with these maps. But you get to benefit from that, our esteemed GMs. You get to run your players through these maps that John has designed to be particularly deadly, and with the partner of Steve Winter, who is also rather a deadly old school dungeon writer, and Wolfgang Bauer, who described at length how deadly the original Scarlet Citadel was for his adventuring party in his home game. You're getting something really special with these maps and with this adventure. There's a great question or a comment by Jayton Ilby a little bit earlier, who was talking about the map folios and wanting to know if all of the maps that we are talking about here, all of these flip map size maps that you can play on the table, are available in the Map Folio. And I just wanted to confirm that, yes, they are all going to be in the Map Folio. I think we've got, what, about 10 full-size maps there, Mark?
Levels 1 and 6 are one map each, 24 by 36, and then the 2 through 5 are 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 10 giant maps, plus, depending on how many stretch goals we hit, there is a potential for additional side levels, which will also get maps. So
Yeah,
that could grow. And
that
hopefully
is That is one of the many fun things about the Scarlet Citadel project is that we cannot tell you how expansive this dungeon is going to be. We cannot tell you how many maps exactly we're going to have, because that is all up to you, and how much funding this project gets and how much our wonderful backers are interested in seeing the different stretch goals that we've laid out. You can go on the project now and see what stretch goals that we have to unlock. I believe at 100K, a digital map pack is in play. Is that correct, Mark?
I believe that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, if you're excited about this project, if you think it's cool, if you're interested in seeing the stretch goals that are out there, or many, many more, we have them planned out way far in the future, pie in the sky dreams of how much this project might be able to raise. Let all of your friends know, post about this in groups on your social media networks and where you're excited, and let people know that you think this is pretty cool. We will continue to talk about the Scarlet Citadel project every week for about the next 4 weeks in this time slot. So if you need more information, you can always come here and ask us about it. There was a question that I wanted to get back to that involved Roll20 and getting the maps and the adventure ported into Roll20, and whether there was a possibility of any additional special features for that. I believe that there has been somewhat of a history recently of our Roll20 offerings having like dynamic lighting included in the map, and I believe that that is an option here. Is that correct, Mark?
Unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that. I am sorry to say to all the virtual tabletop fans out there, I am a live sit at the table with real minis kind of guy. I've never used a virtual tabletop in my life, so I don't know the answer to that, but I would expect that that's probably the case. I know we try and really, for our VTT fans, I know we try and really do the cool stuff, so I would imagine that's the case.
Yes.
But I can't say for sure, just because that's not where my heart is. So
That's not your forte.
That's not my forte. Yeah, I need a mini in my hand and a map on the table and a character sheet in my hand.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Nakara Valine has very kindly pointed out that yes, Fantasy Grounds will have dynamic lighting maps. Great. So we've got that confirmed, and all of you who love your VTT games are more than welcome to check all of that out as soon as those licenses are available. You know, before the global pandemic hit, I was also what I would consider a sit at the table, pen and paper, mini in hand, and character sheet with a pencil beside me, but desperate times call for desperate measures. And the VTTs have been wonderful for me, and I'm playing in many different campaigns at the moment and finding fun ways to run my games. And so we hope that Scarlet Citadel becomes that for you as well.
Absolutely.
So we want to talk a little bit about something that has come up on the Kickstarter that we've posted about in an update, but that I thought would be good to explain on stream, which is the map overlays.
The overlays.
This is a fairly unique and innovative offering that we are including in the Map Folio, and it actually allows you to show the visuals of what has happened in a room when you've sprung a trap, or when a hazard has gone off, or when there is something that has physically changed. And they're 8x10s, and I will let Mark explain the rest of them, because as Alexander says, they are pretty cool.
They're very cool. Yeah, I mean, it's actually a fairly straightforward concept, but I think it's just hard to explain it, in writing it up or etc. I know we did a little graphics sort of showing it, but I don't know how well that conveyed it. Basically, as I say, each of the maps is 24x36, so they're huge. Various points on the map, and various things can happen, as Amanda said. For instance, on the map we were just looking at, Amanda very perfectly mentioned that there's a spot where it looks like there's some vats, and there's some like green, say goop, bubbling away in it. Well, let's just arbitrarily, for instance, say that there's something that happens in the adventure, and maybe something happens where maybe those vats completely explode and fill the room, and and everybody's their feet are burning off, and all kinds of fun alchemical stuff. In the past, if you have a map, a battle map, whatever, you might take your dry erase and just sort of draw out a little scribble and say, okay, well, the green goop is now here and here and here. Well, what in this case, we have an 8x10 overlay, which is just a separate little flip map kind of thing that shows that section of the map exactly as it was on the full size map, but it now shows the green goop exactly where it is. Maybe the vats have been knocked over. And then what you do is you lay it right down on top. The grids all intersect perfectly. And now you have a complete visual representation of what happened. You might also have things like if in a certain section, maybe something triggers a cave in. Maybe some steps completely get, covered by rubble and things like that. Well, there's an overlay for that. You lay it down and then you play, and then it makes the maps very dynamic, very, very changeable, very interactive. It's a very cool idea, and I can't wait to see them in practice. And then for VTT, it'll be kind of the same thing. The overlays will simply be a separate file that can just be sort of placed on top, and then that becomes, again, I'm not a VTT guy, but it'll work however VTT
an image that you place over the map, right? You've got the map on the map layer in the VTT, and there's probably you import it and you put it on the map layer, and you can lay it over.
Sure, that sounds good.
Yeah, we'll go with that. That's how they work.
Says the non-VTT.
Our friends over at Roll20. Yeah, our friends over at Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds will have that integrated seamlessly with the license. If you buy the license, you will get all of those things pre-prepared for you, which I know saves a ton of time. I probably spend at least an hour, if not more, every week preparing for my homebrew game that I run on a VTT, and most of that time is building out maps from individual assets, spending time to arrange things perfectly, making sure I've got the grid and it makes sense, and sometimes I fail and we get a bottle that's the size of a boat, but you won't have to worry about that in your games when you buy the VTT license for Scarlet Citadel.
Right. And as far as the Map Folio that someone asked earlier, all of these overlays will be part of the Map Folio. They're not a separate thing. They'll all come.
Yes. Yeah, fantastic. So how many of these map overlays involve goo? Because it sounds like a lot of these map overlays involve goo.
Well, some have goo, some have gas, some have mist, some have overlays. There might be one that has a big giant room filled with blood, for instance.
Big giant room filled with blood. Oh gosh, Mark, you know how to get to a girl's heart.
there's a lot of cool stuff. It was funny when Steve and Wolfgang and I were sort of initially talking and brainstorming overlays and traps and things. Making it deadly, making it cool was very important. I mean, there were a lot of, again, times where I would hear them talking like, well, I think this room should have X, say a room that fills up with blood, where I just kind of thought, oh man, that's cool. So, I said that a lot during those early.
Oh yeah. And I really feel like that creating a dungeon adventure from the maps first, and then creating the adventure and the monsters that are there and the plots and the themes that are going into the adventure as a result of that, I feel like that's really close to the spirit of an old school dungeon crawl, where deadliness is really emphasized and the traps are very important and everything is very tactical, and the players are strategizing about how they're going to go down the hallway and what rooms they're going to go in first and what do they think is here and what do they think is there. And I really feel like that having an adventure that starts organically from those concerns is really just pushing the feel of the entire thing. What about you? Do you think so?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much an old school kind of approach, but the cool thing that makes it old school yet still a very modern approach is, in fact, there was somebody asked over on N-World, and Steve himself, he responded, this isn't one of those kind of very first edition kind of things where you're basically just going in to clear it out. Once the room's cleared out, the monsters are gone. This has, in fact, Steve actually mentioned that there are actual sidebars and all throughout the manuscript that talk about, okay, well, if they go through this section and clear out, where this group or this monster, whatever, if they come back, chances are this will have happened. So I mean, again, it's an organic living dungeon. It isn't just a go in, clear out room A, take stuff, go to room B.
Yep.
There's a very much more modern, alive
The
feel to it.
traps all reset is what Mark is saying.
I
So just
didn't say
because
a
you
word.
cleared one corridor like 3 days ago does not mean that those traps will no longer be there.
Yeah, or creatures up in this section might come down. They might come down and help the other creatures, or if you destroy X, you may have created a little power vacuum, and then next thing you know, I mean, it sounds like, obviously I haven't seen the final manuscript yet, but I mean, it's a really cool approach. I think it's going to be a really, really, really cool adventure. I'm actually very excited to play in it. That's always one of the interesting and cool things, yet sometimes difficult things, because I do the layout, so I'm reading it. So the cool thing is, as I'm laying it out, I'm reading stuff and thinking, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's great. But then the bad side is, I'm thinking, oh, if I want to play in this,
Yeah.
I should maybe not read this as I lay it out. Fortunately, my memory's terrible, so by the time the book comes out, I'll have forgotten.
That's when we get an email from you at like 3 a.m. Friday night that says, I would be done with this, but I got distracted reading the adventure.
Yeah, it's definitely a cool aspect, to be able to see that stuff and to read it and think, oh, I can't wait till people see this.
Yeah, and the big expansive nature of the dungeon, like we're illustrating in the maps and in the chapter opener arts, really it really encourages, I think, a open-ended narrative style that people think dungeon crawling. Oh, it's all just about going from room A to room B and killing the monsters in room A and then killing the monsters in room B. And like Mark mentioned, that's not the case at all. In this adventure, or in a lot of really big dungeon adventures, there's an entire ecology to this dungeon. There are creatures who have lived here, for years and years. There's outsiders who've been here for longer, than anybody's grandfather's grandfather in some cases. So there's all of these stories that you can tell based entirely upon what the PCs do. And it might be as simple as what room they went into, or what trap they bypassed, or what level they decided to skirt around. You as a GM can make all of those decisions matter. And you can also use the maps in a way to kind of like foreshadow what might be happening, and the decisions can be influenced in that way as well.
Mm.
So there's a lot going on, and like Slight Addict says, it's very rich, like a 7-layer cake that bleeds as it cuts you.
Very nice.
Well done, Slight Addict.
Very nice.
We
Very
agree.
nice. And to sort of play off what you're saying about, it can become almost a campaign. I mentioned earlier about in our Warlock 20 there, it talks about Red Tower, which is a little village that's nearby. And I think we have a stretch goal to hopefully that we hit where we can incorporate that and expand on Red Tower and make that a chapter in the main book. Cool thing about Red Tower is that it can and probably will become the player's kind of base.
Yeah.
They can
The Hamlet of this adventure.
Well, exactly, and that's kind of interesting on the Warlock cover. We did a really cool black and white. Warlock is black and white. We did a really cool cover, and I asked on Facebook or Twitter, can anybody figure out what the little homage was? We sort of made the cover a slight homage to the Village of Hamlet cover. And that's very much, if you think of Scarlet Citadel as, I'm blanking out, what's the dungeon?
Yeah, that's super cool. We definitely, while we've put together something that we think is fresh and new and exciting and appealing to players who are both, old and veterans and new and just getting started, maybe it's their first adventure, we definitely want to recognize the roots of where this dungeon came from, and the fact that we are all inspired by, adventures like Temple of Elemental Evil and other.
I was blanking out on that name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, so Red Tower, kind of becomes their base, and Red Tower is a very rich and living village. I mean, they could have, in addition to all the dungeon stuff, you could have hours of adventures just role playing in Red Tower, with all the NPCs, and there's little groups and little factions in there, and there's some cool little adventure potential in the surrounding areas and the farms and the forest and the hills around Red Tower. So, it's not just the Scarlet Citadel. There's a lot of potential for a really cool campaign.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like we mentioned last week when we talked with Wolfgang, the dungeon could be portable as well. It could be picked up and put in other parts of Midgard. It could be put in other campaign settings. It's very malleable, and it's really geared toward DMs and GMs who are wanting to create their own story, as well as people who are just interested in playing what's already there in the book.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, so we've got Jayton Elby, who said that they pledged tonight and suggest putting more info about the Map Folio on the main page. Thank you so much for your support, Jayton. And yeah, we will look into and definitely put some more info on that Map Folio, because it is super cool and we want folks to know what it is up front. We are getting close to our time, so if you have any last minute questions, jokes, names for the gnome adventure that we can shoot down, because Mark has already decided.
I've already claimed it. It's over.
Already claimed it. Please go for it. If not, we will point you to next week, when we'll have Steve Winter himself, the designer of the Scarlet Citadel book, on the show to talk with me. I will try not to just screech and flail at him, and we'll get you all kinds of information, secrets, and spoilers, perhaps, about the Scarlet Citadel adventure. So yeah, Mark, you got any parting thoughts for all of our friends at home?
Other than just to sort of reiterate what I've said before, obviously I'm involved in this, so I'm biased, but this is a really cool project, and I hope everybody pledges and backs it. It's a really cool project. It's going to be an awesome adventure, but I am most excited about these maps. This Map Folio, obviously if you're on VTV, but if you play live and you want that physical printed Map Folio, it's going to be awesome. I mean, they're huge. The overlays are going to be great. As excited I was about the adventure itself when it was initially proposed and we were talking about it, these maps are going to be fantastic. So I really hope everybody who plays physically or potentially is, these maps are going to be great. And even, I guess, even if you don't, you could use these maps separately. I mean, even if you weren't playing Scarlet Citadel, you could take those maps and use them for your own adventures.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's really my parting thought. These maps are going to be awesome.
Yes, for sure. So one thing that might be self-evident that I do want to mention, just in case folks are wondering, the physical Map Folio that has got all of those beautiful level maps and all of the overlays that we've described today, those are fully laminated and they are dry and wet erase marker safe. And so that's really optimized for you to be able to mark things on the map that are maybe outside of what you're putting the overlays on, showing the hazards and the traps that have sprung. So really useful for, doing things like marking X's where PCs have met their final end, writing rude notes in the margins to your GM after you've met your final end, and various other just tricks and tips. I can't talk, excuse me. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. I have been your editorial director, Kobold, Amanda Hammond, and we have with us.
Oh, do I have to say it myself?
Yeah, you.
Me. I'm Marc Radle, art director, and after this, I'm going to go back behind the scenes where I'm much more comfortable.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mark. It was a wonderful conversation. We appreciate all of your insight, all of the beautiful art that we were able to show off, 2 of which had never been seen before, and of course, that lovely map. Thank you all for joining us. This has been Scarlet Citadel Wednesdays. Catch us next week in this exact same time slot, and we will screech at you later. Bye, folks.